Our speaker this evening, Dr. Jamie Orr, has been passionate about nature and science from an early age. She received her BS in physics from Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, and then went on to obtain a PhD in theoretical physics from UC Davis. As an instructor, Jamie developed research and curricular programs in renewable energy technology and efficiency, nanotechnology, biomedical engineering, and 3D printing, and also holds research privileges at NASA Ames Research Center. In 2013, Jamie and her family left the Silicon Valley to move to South Lake Tahoe. Much like our founding members planting a seed for the Women's Fund in 2007, Jamie, her husband, and a partner planted a seed in South Lake Tahoe in 2014 on the belief that when you put people together in the right environment, the power of collaboration begins to grow. What grew from this seed is the Tahoe Mountain Lab, and that's the first co-working space and a hub of innovation for the entire South Shore. Jamie is an advocate for science outreach at all ages and is excited to share her knowledge and love of science with the community. So you may be wondering, what does all of this science have to do with the Women's Fund? As members of the Women's Fund, we have witnessed firsthand the power of collective giving. Jamie will be speaking to us on emergence in philanthropy, the power of interaction, and creating change with groups, exactly what the Women's Fund El Dorado is achieving in this community. Jamie doesn't just believe in the benefits of a strong community and an all-inclusive work ethic, she lives it. As if she doesn't have enough on her plate, Jamie, along with 9 other women, in 2015, established the Tahoe Women's Community Fund. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Jamie Orr.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. It's truly an honor to stand up here and to share some physics with you. So as Maureen said, my husband, David, my daughter, Annika, and I moved to Tahoe almost 4 years ago, so we're almost locals. I think we might be considered locals when we hit the 5-year mark. We moved the weekend before Christmas, which is not something I would ever advise doing, but we were getting worn out with Silicon Valley. With the traffic, the startup hamster wheel, the prices, and especially with how difficult it was to be part of a community there. We hardly knew any of our neighbors, and to just visit friends for dinner, we had to battle rush hour traffic. We'd been coming frequently to Tahoe with Annika since she was 2 weeks old, and each year we made a photo album. And one evening, right before her 2nd birthday, we looked through one of these albums and realized that most of our happiest pictures were not in Mountain View, they were in South Lake Tahoe. So we made the decision then and there to make the next trip a permanent one. And within a month, we did it. And we couldn't be happier. Since then, I've gotten a little involved with the community. And those that know me will tell you that's an understatement and often ask me if I ever sleep. My husband and I, as mentioned, founded Tahoe Mountain Lab. It's become a hub of innovation. I've joined several foundation boards, and I'm active in local issues and have led several initiatives. And yes, I do sleep. But to give you a real insight into why I've gotten so involved and my strategy for how, I have to give you a lecture about theoretical physics. Don't worry, there's no prerequisites, and I promise not to make anyone do math, although I highly encourage it. So when I was a kid, I loved to climb trees. And on most afternoons, I would sit in this little tree in my backyard and watch the fog roll in over the hills of the Santa Cruz Mountains and cover the bay. And I would just sit there and watch as these fingers of fog would slowly creep across. And I would wonder, how is it that millions and millions of tiny water droplets could come together and form these beautiful shapes, create these blankets? What was it that caused this to happen? I was fascinated by questions like this. And these questions led me to physics, to study the interactions of the physical world. And through physics, I discovered a beautiful language that helped me to answer many of my childhood questions. And the common theme was the importance of interactions. So in physics, there's a quest for everything, a set of equations that can describe all the phenomena in the physical world in a neat mathematical package. Like I said, I'm not going to make you solve it. So when we're looking at a people-scale world, so think about just things in this room, there is such a theory, and it's for conventional, non-relativistic quantum mechanics. So you may be asking, what on earth does that mean, and how does it apply to philanthropy? Well, this set of equations describes the ordinary behavior of the world around us, things like falling rocks, airflow, basic movements, and physicists like myself are trained how to use these early in our studies. But we solve this equation for things like the hydrogen atom, just one atom. In fact, it's not even possible to solve this equation exactly for anything more than a small number of atoms. So you have approximations for this equation, you have experiments, and they've taught us a lot about the physical world. But the fact of the matter is, this theory of everything, it doesn't tell us anything at all. We can't describe or predict the behavior of real things, not exactly by looking at and building from a single atom in that system. What this means is that studying something like hydrogen and oxygen can never tell us about the behavior we see in water. Water has qualities and characteristics beyond having more hydrogen and oxygen. These characteristics are called emergent. So here's another example, the flight of a single bird. As it flies past us, it might catch your attention for just a moment. You might turn your head, look up to see what changed in your field of vision, but just as quickly your attention is lost, and you go back to walking down the street or drinking your cup of coffee. Now consider an entire flock. They don't just fly together randomly. They turn, they lift, they change direction altogether. Now this is attention-getting. This is mesmerizing. The pattern they have created, seemingly out of chaos, is beautiful. More importantly, the pattern is different than just a bunch of birds flying in the air. Together, these starlings have created a pattern that individual birds cannot exhibit alone. The flock is exhibiting behavior that none of the birds can replicate on their own. The behavior, the patterns, they're unexpected, and they're new, and they're more. Now, such entirely new properties and behaviors emerge with no one directing, no one able to foresee the new characteristics from knowledge of just one bird alone. It's not possible to predict this by studying just one starling in flight. That is the heart of the theory of emergence. We cannot model or predict what a system is going to do from knowledge of just one piece of it. As Nobel laureate P.W. Anderson puts it, more is different. The emergent behavior is caused by the actions of all individual parts within the system acting upon a fixed set of rules. There are no leaders. In this case, there's just more birds. For the flock, they have a common goal, safety. The rules they follow to achieve this goal are simple. Stay a certain distance away from your nearest neighbor and avoid predators. Yet from this simplicity arrives this magnificent pattern. Aristotle said that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Now, mathematically speaking, it might seem like saying 2 + 2 = 5. But we can see the proof in his statement. The birds interact with one another, respond to one another, and as a result, a beautiful and dynamic pattern emerges. The key is in the interaction of the parts. Without that interaction, the pattern wouldn't exist. And we can see other examples of this all around us. Ripples in sand dunes, the coordination of ant colonies, and fractal patterns in things like cauliflower at the grocery store. Make sure to check next time you go. No single part of any of these systems could create these beautiful or powerful patterns on their own. We are pretty complex systems. We are emergent. Human beings have an estimated 86 billion neurons in the brain and trillions of cells in our bodies that are constantly dying and being replaced, all interacting to make us who we are. No one cell in our body defines us. And our communities are complex systems. No one person can define a community. The problems we face are complex, with many interacting variables that change drastically at any moment. And there's very few instances when simple linear logic can solve anything. So if we want to affect real change, if we want to strengthen our communities, we have to utilize an emergent strategy. We must focus on our interactions with one another. You alone cannot create a movement or change the world. You need your nearest neighbors, and you need to interact with them. And the nature of those interactions will dictate what emergent behavior arises. Of emergence, it has been said, it's not magic, but it feels like magic. So how do you create magic? How can we catalyze emergent behavior around us? Remember that complexity arises quickly, even from very simple interactions. So we don't need to try and solve a problem all at once. We just need to start with a simple interaction. And what does that look like? It looks like this. Did anyone know 10 years ago that this evening was going to happen? Did anyone know how this group would grow, or if it even would? But here you are. You have already exhibited behavior that is bigger than the sum of your parts. By giving collectively, you are making impacts much larger than what any one of you could do on your own. By giving locally, you are ensuring that the support is going where you collectively believe it needs to, and you are the best suited to provide that knowledge. We can respond to changes in our community. We can collectively react to bring the social change we want to see in a complex world. We can grow, and we can create something beautiful, but we have to do so with each other. Now, this isn't rocket science, but it is theoretical physics. And I'd like to leave you with this. One water molecule is not fluid. One gold atom is not metallic. One neuron is not conscious. And one amino acid is not alive. To achieve the results that we want for our communities, we must focus on our interactions with one another, and especially with our nearest neighbors, to reach our collective potential. Now, I'm not going to say what else will emerge, because I can't truly predict that. But I do know it will feel like magic. And I hope that this evening you enjoy sharing in the magic you have already helped create. Thank you.